In January 2024, at 16,000 feet above Portland, Oregon, a door plug blew off a brand new commercial airliner. The cabin depressurized instantly. Wind screamed through the fuselage. Phones were sucked out into the night sky. It was a miracle that nobody died. We called it an accident. Weeks later, in Baltimore, a massive cargo ship drifted powerless into the Francis Scott Key Bridge. In a matter of seconds, critical infrastructure that had stood for decades crumpled into the dark water, severing a major artery of American logistics. We called it a tragedy. Then, a single faulty software update from a cybersecurity firm crashed the global banking system, grounded thousands of flights, and forced hospitals to cancel surgeries. The screens went blue. The world stood still. We called it a glitch. We tell ourselves these are isolated events. We tell ourselves it's just bad luck, a run of misfortune, or perhaps the growing pains of a high-tech world. But what if it isn't? What if these aren't accidents at all? What if they are symptoms of a much deeper, silent decay rotting the foundations of the Western world? There is a pattern here, one that has destroyed empires before us. It isn't an economic crash. It isn't a war. It is something far more dangerous because it is invisible until it is too late. We are forgetting how to keep the lights on. We are living through a crisis of competence. And frankly, you should be terrified. To understand why planes are falling apart and bridges are collapsing, you first have to understand the world we inherited. We live in a complexity trap. The electrical grids, the sewage systems, the global logistics networks, the nuclear power plants, these massive systems were built by a previous generation of giants. They were designed by engineers, physicists, and heavy industrialists who were obsessed with reality. They asked only one question: does it work? These systems are incredibly complex. They require constant, high-level maintenance by people who understand them as deeply as the people who built them. But we are now living on the momentum of the past. We are the trust fund kids of history. We didn't build the engine. We just inherited the keys. And because the system worked so well for so long, we became complacent. We stopped prioritizing the people who know how to fix the engine, and we started prioritizing the people who decide how to paint the car. We replaced the meritocracy, the rule by the most capable, with the bureaucracy, the rule by the managers. The central thesis of what we are witnessing is simple but chilling. The complexity of our civilization has exceeded our ability to manage it. We are promoting people who don't understand the systems they oversee. And now, the maintenance bill for civilization is coming due, and we have lost the ability to pay it. This is not a new story. History warns us that civilizations don't always die in a blaze of glory or a nuclear flash. Sometimes they simply break down. Consider the fall of Rome. Most people think Rome fell because the barbarians stormed the gates. That's the movie version. The reality is much more boring and much more frightening. By the late Empire, Rome faced a catastrophic crisis of human capital. The engineering elite that designed the Pantheon and the aqueducts had vanished. As the government became more corrupt and bloated, critical positions in the administration were sold to the highest bidder or given to political favorites. Nepotism replaced ability. The result was a slow, agonizing suffocation. When the aqueducts broke, the late Romans didn't know how to fix them. They had lost the recipe for the special waterproof concrete their ancestors had invented. They stripped lead from the roofs of their own magnificent temples just to patch the walls. They were living in the skeleton of a dead giant, unable to keep its heart beating. The barbarians didn't destroy Rome's infrastructure. They walked into a city that had already forgotten how to function. Fast forward to 1986. The Soviet Union. The Chernobyl disaster wasn't just about a bad reactor design. It was a failure of personnel selection. For decades, the USSR promoted people based on party loyalty rather than technical skill. If you were a good communist, you became the manager of the power plant. If you were a brilliant physicist but questioned the party, you were removed. On the night of the disaster, the men in the control room were underqualified, afraid of authority, and following political quotas rather than safety protocols. The system prioritized ideology over competence. The price was an exploded core, a poisoned continent, and the eventual collapse of the entire Union. Rome lost the knowledge. The Soviets purged the competence. In both cases, the systems became too complex for the people running them. And today, when you look at the headlines, does that sound familiar? If we step back and analyze these collapses, we can see a distinct cycle of competence that every great power seems to go through. It happens in 5 clear stages. Stage 1 is the founders. In the beginning, survival is at stake. Whether it's a new nation or a startup company, there is no room for error. Only the best are put in charge. If the bridge falls, the engineer is executed or exiled. Standards are ruthless. Competence is the only currency that matters. Stage 2 is the golden age. The systems built by the founders work perfectly. Life becomes easy. Wealth accumulates. The immediate threat of death or starvation fades. The society becomes rich and comfortable. This leads to Stage 3, the drift. Since the system appears to run itself, society decides it can afford to focus on other things. We start hiring based on nepotism, political favor, diversity quotas, or cost-cutting measures. We assume the system is robust enough to handle a few incompetent leaders. We stop asking who is the best engineer and start asking who is the most politically convenient candidate. Stage 4 is the hollow institution. The organizations look the same. They have the same logos, the same buildings, the same titles, but the institutional knowledge is gone. The senior engineers retire. The new hires lack the deep understanding of why things were built that way. Procedures replace understanding. Checklists replace critical thinking. The shell remains, but the ghost has left the machine. Finally, Stage 5. The cascade. A minor stressor hits a storm, a war, a software bug. The hollowed-out system cannot adapt. Things break, and because the competence is gone, nobody knows how to fix them. The collapse is sudden and shocking. Right now, the West is transitioning from Stage 4 to Stage 5. We are seeing the cracks in the shell. Let's look at the United States today. The most glaring example is Boeing. This was once the gold standard of engineering, a company run by engineers for engineers. If you flew Boeing, you were safe. But over the last 2 decades, the culture shifted. Financial managers took over. Wall Street demanded higher margins. Then, social goals took priority. The headquarters was moved away from the factory floor in Seattle to Chicago, and then Virginia, physically separating the decision-makers from the mechanics. They fired the gray-bearded senior engineers to cut costs and hired cheaper, less experienced subcontractors. They outsourced critical software code to temporary workers who didn't understand aviation. The result? The 737 MAX crashes. Doors blowing off in midair. A reputation built over a century destroyed in a decade. But it's not just corporations. Look at the U.S. power grid. It is a patchwork of aging technology from the 1970s. We are pushing it to the limit with AI data centers, crypto mining, and millions of electric vehicles. Yet precisely when we need the best minds to solve this, universities are graduating fewer electrical engineers with rigorous training. We are seeing medical schools remove standardized testing requirements. We are seeing airlines reduce the required flight hours for new pilots. We are literally lowering the bar for the people responsible for keeping us alive. We are doing this in the name of equity or fairness. But gravity does not care about fairness. Electricity does not care about your political ideology. If the person designing the substation isn't the absolute best person for the job, the lights go out. We are also witnessing a massive brain drain. Smart, highly capable people are fleeing large institutions. They are tired of the bureaucracy, the HR seminars, and the political infighting. They are leaving to start their own companies, or moving to crypto, or simply retreating to private life. Who is left running the FDA, the FAA, the major banks? Often, it is the career bureaucrats, the paper pushers, the people who are good at navigating office politics, but have no idea how the machinery actually works. This is the Atlas Shrugged scenario playing out in real life. The competent are checking out, leaving the complex machinery of civilization in the hands of people who think electricity comes from the wall and food comes from the grocery store. We have built a Ferrari civilization, and we just toss the keys to a toddler. So, what happens next? If this trend continues, we enter what historians call a decaying orbit. We won't necessarily see a sudden, Hollywood-style apocalypse tomorrow. Instead, we will see a gradual, frustrating decline in the quality of life. This is the slow grind. Flights will become more expensive and less safe, so you will travel less. Blackouts will become a normal part of summer and winter. Medical errors will rise as standards for doctors are relaxed. Software bugs will freeze your bank account for weeks, not hours, and customer service will be a chatbot that can't help you. We will become a third-world country with a Gucci belt, high-tech gadgets on the surface, but broken infrastructure underneath. But the real danger, the thing that should keep you awake at night, 'tis the black swan. What happens when a massive crisis hits? What if a solar flare takes down the grid? What if a coordinated cyber attack wipes out the financial ledgers? In 1950, we could have rebuilt the grid manually. We had the men who built it. We had the schematics. We had the raw capability. In 2030, if the automated systems fail, do we have the human capital to reboot civilization manually? The scary answer is, probably not. We are losing the ancillary knowledge, the unwritten wisdom passed down from master to apprentice. When the last COBOL programmer dies, who fixes the banking mainframe? When the last engineer who understands the deep physics of the Hoover Dam retires, who maintains it? Civilization is not a natural resource. It is not something that just exists. It is a maintenance contract. It requires constant effort, ruthless standards, and a dedication to truth over feelings. The Romans forgot this. The Soviets forgot this. And now we are forgetting it. We can fix this, but it requires an uncomfortable return to reality. It means prioritizing competence over everything else. It means accepting that not everyone can be a nuclear physicist. It means valuing the person who keeps the bridge standing more than the person who writes the HR policy. It means realizing that meritocracy isn't mean, it's necessary. Competence is compassion, because competence is what keeps the plane in the air, the water clean, and the children safe. If we don't make that shift, if we continue to value politics over performance, then the lights will eventually go out. And this time, there might be no one left who knows how to turn them back on. If you want to understand the hidden economic forces driving this collapse and how to protect yourself from what's coming, make sure you're subscribed to Economy Rewind. We'll see you in the next one.